Good evening, hello and welcome. You're with the news today. This is your primetime destination. News, newsmakers, talking points. Our big talking point is coming from the Middle East, where the war could well be expanding. Will Iran now play a direct role as Israel takes down the Hezbollah? Is an all-out war inevitable? We'll have some of the world's top experts on the Middle East joining us on the show. Also, my special guest tonight is the latest winner of the Dada Saheb Phalke Award for Lifetime Achievement, Mithun Chakraborty. Mithun Da will be with us. The war in West Asia that appears to be escalating. As I said, the Prime Minister has spoken a short while ago to the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. But Israel continues to pound Beirut with airstrikes, and a ground offensive in Lebanon appears to be looming. The Hezbollah, stung by the assassination of its chief Nasrallah, says it's ready for a ground invasion, while Israel has stepped up its offensive against the three H's, Hamas, Hezbollah and the Houthis. The big question now, will Iran also enter this war? Are we seeing the beginning of an expanding war in the Middle East that could consume the rest of the world? Take a look at today's top story.
Israel bombs central Beirut. The attack on Monday was the first time the heart of the city was targeted since 2006. The strike on leaders of the Popular Front of the Liberation Palestine comes just days after Israeli jets pounded apartment buildings in the southern suburbs of Beirut, killing Hassan Nasrallah. The Hezbollah chief was meeting the top leadership in a deep underground bunker when bunker buster bombs flattened the buildings above. The series of relentless attacks that started with pager bombs has sparked speculation about a possible ground assault in Lebanon by Israeli defense forces at a time the Hezbollah is at its weakest.
We'll do what needs to be done. Our aim is to return residents of northern Israel to their homes. To return the residents of north to their homes, we will be ready to make every effort. This is our mission. This is the IDF mission, and that's what we'll do. And we will employ all our capabilities, including our forces, including your forces and other forces from the air, the sea and the ground.
Hezbollah's deputy chief Sheikh Naim Kassem on Monday declared the Shia militia is ready for any ground offensive.
Hezbollah will continue with its goals and their presence in the field. The command system and the Mujahideen will continue following with your plan, O Secretary, with the same precision and the steps that you have drawn up. The Islamic resistance will continue to confront the Israeli enemy in support of Gaza and Palestine, in defense of Lebanon and its people, and in response to the assassinations and the killings of civilians.
The escalation in war has taken a huge toll on the common people. Over 1 lakh people have fled Lebanon for Syria.
A multi-story building has been targeted a few hours back, early in the morning on Monday, and this multi-story building has collapsed completely, and you can see nothing except destruction here.
Israeli warplanes on Sunday hit Houthi positions in Yemen after the rebels fired a ballistic missile aimed at the Tel Aviv airport. The bombings in Yemen targeted fuel facilities, power plants and ports. With Israel expanding its war on the proxies of Iran, the US is fortifying its presence in the region in anticipation of a counterattack by Iran.
Really have to avoid it. We've already taken precautions relative to our embassies and personnel who want to leave, but We're not there yet, but we're working like hell with the French and many others to see if we can do it.
Other Gulf countries like Saudi Arabia and UAE, which have Sunni rulers, are expectedly keeping a distance, given that they too have been targeted by Iran's axis of resistance. While Israel pushes to establish a new order in the Middle East, all eyes are now on Iran. With Ashrafani in Beirut, Bureau Report, India Today.
Plenty of big questions to raise tonight. Is Israel now expanding the theatre of war? Will Iran now play a direct role? Is West Asia split wide open on this war? Are we going to see an all-out war in the area or a de-escalation next? My first guest is one of the world's leading experts on the Middle East. He's professor at Middle East Studies at Princeton University in the United States and covers the region very closely. I appreciate you joining us, Professor Bernard Heikel there. Thank you very much. Your first response to what has happened in the last 48 hours, in particular, the volley of airstrikes that have hit Beirut, the assassination of Hassan Nasrallah and several other senior commanders of the Hezbollah. Is this end game Hezbollah, Dr. Heikel, or would you see now an inevitable escalation of this conflict?
So first, I think, let me just say it's nice to be with you. I think everyone has been surprised at Israel's ability to penetrate the Hezbollah and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps of Iran through its intelligence and communications capacities. And no one could have predicted this devastating set of attacks that would basically wipe out the leadership of Hezbollah. And not just the first rank, but the second rank leadership as well. So I do not think that this is the end of Hezbollah. However, Hezbollah is the crown jewel of Iran's non-state actors, the proxies that it has subsidized and trained and armed throughout the Middle East, from Iraq to Syria to Lebanon and Yemen. And Iran will make sure that Hezbollah survives. How Iran does this is not clear. But no one would have been able to predict the success of Israel these last few weeks.
But are we going to see an escalation of the conflict? Because if what you're saying happens, will Iran be drawn into this battle more directly? From using the Hezbollah as a proxy, could now Iran get more directly involved, Professor Heikel?
No, I don't think Iran is interested in a direct battle. It's very clear that the Iranian president, who came to the United Nations just a few days ago, made clear that he wants to de-escalate because the Iranians realize that if this becomes an all-out war between Iran and Israel, America, the United States, will come into the battle on the side of Israel, and Iran will be devastated militarily. So Iran does not want to attack or get involved directly. It wishes to do so through its proxies and through the non-state actors that it has created, and the coordination between these various non-state actors. So you see that the Houthis in Yemen are now helping by launching missiles at Israel, helping Hezbollah, that is, and helping the Hamas in Gaza. But effectively, Israel has more or less decimated, if not destroyed, Hamas militarily, not politically, and has done something quite similar, not quite as devastating, to Hezbollah.
Let's talk about the Hezbollah for a moment. This force of which very little is perhaps known. Do you believe that given what has happened in the last 72 hours, Hezbollah itself will find it difficult to revive from these setbacks? Or is the fear that they could hit back with even greater intensity? Can Hezbollah actually regroup? Is that a fear that they could actually get even more intense in their attacks on Israel?
Well, it'll definitely take a while to regroup, but Hezbollah has very, ballistic missiles that have precision-guided warheads. Those are still under the control of Iran. So I think whatever Hezbollah does will be at the instructions of Iran. And so far, they have not used these ballistic missiles against Israel. So that means that the Iranians still control Hezbollah's decision-making. The other thing about Hezbollah that should be noted by your listeners and watchers is that Hezbollah is not popular in Lebanon. I mean, there is a large percentage of the population of Lebanon, mainly Sunni Muslims and Christians, as well as some Shiites, who do not like the fact that Hezbollah does Iran's bidding and has dragged Lebanon into a war that most Lebanese, if not all Lebanese, do not want with Israel.
You're saying most Lebanese do not want a war with Israel, but do you believe Israel therefore could use this opportunity now to launch a ground offensive in Lebanon of the kind that they've done with the Hamas in Gaza? Is that a real possibility now, Professor Heikel?
I mean, it's a possibility. I think it would be a big mistake if Israel does this. The idea is that if Israel takes a buffer zone, controls a buffer zone in Lebanon, it could then negotiate that buffer zone, bringing in the Lebanese army rather than Hezbollah in that area, and then have calm and peace on its border. I think that's the logic of an Israeli invasion. They've done this. This would be the fourth, if the Israelis invade, this would be the fourth invasion of Lebanon since beginning in 1978, then 1982, then 2006. And each time Israel has done this, it has not achieved its strategic goals. So I think it would be a mistake. And so far, I think Israel realizes that it's had remarkable success with its air campaign and its intelligence attacks. I'm not sure a ground campaign is necessary, although that's still open. That's still an open question.
The other key question, Professor Heikel, is the growing division seemingly in the Arab world over how this is playing out. The so-called axis of resistance led by Iran that includes countries like Yemen, the Houthis, the Hezbollah, the proxies on one side, and then you have Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Sunni countries that perhaps do not want to see the Islamic radicalism spread far and wide in the manner that Iran would like to. Are we going to now see an even greater divide within the Arab world over what happens next?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a division in the Arab world, and it's a division that's between so-called moderate states that are allied with the United States and states that form part of this so-called axis of resistance. And there's also a divide between Sunnis and Shi'is as well, with the exception of Palestine, where the Sunnis, the Sunni Hamas has allied with Iran. The other Sunnis have not allied with Iran, and many of them are privately quite happy at seeing the devastation that has been inflicted on Hezbollah lately.
One final question, Professor Heikel. How are you going to therefore see the next few months panning out? We will complete 1 year since the Israeli offensive after the terror attack against Hamas. Now we see fresh fronts opening up, the latest in Lebanon. Are we going to see any solution, Professor Heikel, in the near term at all? Do you see any kind of de-escalation?
I don't see a solution, but I see the possibility of de-escalation. That's possible.
But what would be the trigger for a de-escalation? Do you believe a de-escalation could take place post the US presidential November elections? Is that the next big moment to look out for? Because there are many who believe Israel now sees this as a moment to go ahead, a tipping point for them to simply crush their enemies that lie around them, take advantage of what has happened in recent days and weeks.
Yeah, I mean, the Israelis are definitely on a roll, and they will continue to weaken their enemy. But it's also clear that the Americans are not likely to put any pressure on the Israelis at all to stop. And I think that the election results, whether it's Vice President Harris or President Trump, either of them are unlikely to put pressure on Israel to stop their attacks on Iran's proxies. Remember also that the Americans are fighting Iran's proxies in Yemen, for example. So Israel and America is on the same side in very many of these conflicts.
Professor Heikel, for joining us and giving us the big picture. Appreciate you joining me there from Princeton University. I want to widen this debate because there are several key players, stakeholders, and we want to go across the world. Brigadier General Asaf Orion is joining us, former head Strategic Division IDF, General's Staff Planning Directorate at Washington, D.C. I appreciate your joining us. I'm joined by Kabir Taneja. He's Deputy Director and Fellow Strategic Studies at ORF. And Itai Melchior, researcher and advisor in Middle East and Africa Affairs at Israel National Security, joins us from Haifa in Israel. And Syed Mohammad Marandi is professor at Tehran University. So we're getting voices from across. Let me come to my first Israeli guest at the moment, because you all are in the heart of this battle. Brigadier General Asaf Orion, your reactions to what has happened in the last 48 hours. Do you see a de-escalation or a further escalation of the conflict?
We are now almost a year into an offensive opened by Hamas and joined by Iran and all its proxies. Israel has been on the defensive in the Lebanese front. It didn't open recently for almost 11 months. Mid-September, Israel decided to go on the offensive. And you mentioned some of the operations, and there is a streak of successful attacks, staggering Hezbollah's structure, severing its command structure. I wouldn't say decapitation, because it's from the chest up, and also taking out a lot of seemingly secretive capabilities hidden inside populated areas. That's another signature of Iran's school of war. So what we are seeing now is Israel rolling back 2 decades of military buildup by Hezbollah and Iran in Lebanon, and I expect that Israel will not stop before a serious amount of those capabilities are being destroyed, and the conditions are being met to accept the terms of Israel, which have not been yet announced, but I'm sure that will include decoupling of the attacks in Lebanon from the attacks in Gaza, removing Hezbollah capabilities from the south in accordance with 1701, dealing with the rest of the arsenal according to 1559 and other aspects.
Itai Melchior, hearing you've just heard what was just said, do you see this as therefore restricted to Lebanon? We're already seeing today attacks on Houthi targets in Yemen. Are we seeing an expanding theater of war, Itai Melchior?
Yes, well, thank you for having me on the show. You forgot to mention also attacks in Syria, which is a way in which Iran fuels and supports Hezbollah. And also, I would like to correct the ticker on the bottom of your screen that says that it's a war between Israel and Lebanon. Lebanon is not a side to this war, and Hezbollah is actually a parasite in Lebanon. It is an Iranian proxy. Israel has no dispute, no border dispute with Lebanon. Everything is settled, and really no reason for war. So therefore, I think that at least on this front, the idea is to get to some kind of agreement. Yes, to have the Lebanese army take control of southern Lebanon, hopefully without an Israeli soldier having to step foot in Lebanon, because it will only be going in and then coming out again once an agreement is reached. So why not reach an agreement in advance? That still leaves the question of the power of Hezbollah, because Hezbollah, fueled by Iranian money, is much richer than Lebanon as a country, which is a failing state currently with many problems, and a low-level Hezbollah activist, terrorists makes a better living than a high-ranking officer in the Lebanese army. So there's still room to worry if Hezbollah is not dealt to the root.
But you're saying it will be limited to Hezbollah for now. Am I correct that Hezbollah and the proxies of Iran will remain the target? It's very targeted. Am I correct?
It is correct. We've heard voices from Iraq now that some voices saying that Israel may attack civilian infrastructure in Iraq. It's true that Israel has been shot at, again, by Iranian proxies from Iraq, but Israel has no beef with Iraq. I don't see Israel attacking Iraqi civilian infrastructure, maybe camps of terrorists. That is on the table. It is a possibility. That will be a very strong signal to Iran if this does happen. We see the attacks in Yemen on the Houthis, where there was infrastructure targeted, and I think this is a strong signal to Iran.
You know, Syed Mohammad Marandi, you're professor at Tehran University, you're hearing these voices from Israel saying Hezbollah and the Houthis are all proxies of Iran. what is happening is a targeted attack on these proxies, on the so-called axis of resistance formed by Iran. And there's speculation that Israel could launch a ground offensive in Lebanon. How will Tehran respond? Is Tehran ready to risk a direct war with Israel? Or are you going to continue this fight through the axis of resistance, through proxies like Hezbollah?
Iran will definitely strike the Israeli regime directly because it has violated Iranian sovereignty multiple times. It has murdered an Iranian general just recently and also injured the Iranian ambassador to Lebanon. Mm-hmm. And it has murdered an official guest of Iran, Mr. Ismail Haniyeh. Mm-hmm. So Iran will definitely strike, and it will strike hard, but it will also support the axis of resistance. It will enable them to defeat the regime. No, Israel can slaughter women and children, but it cannot win the war.
No, you're saying it can't win the war, but the fact is that the Hezbollah, which you call part of this axis of resistance, has taken a real beating in recent days. And now with the Hezbollah under attack, with targeted attacks on the Houthis, it seems that your axis of resistance has been taken by surprise. Now, global security strategists expecting a sharper response from forces loyal to the regime in Iran have found that these forces actually have been severely damaged by the Israelis in the last couple of days.
Well, Iran is not a regime. It is an Islamic republic that has popular legitimacy. Mm-hmm. And unlike the Israeli regime, which is an ethno-supremacist entity, Iran does not believe in racial hierarchy. Mm-hmm. These different members of the Axis resistance are not proxies, they're allies of Iran, mm-hmm. and they were not actually taken by surprise. In the last speech by Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah before he was martyred, he said that he may not live to see the end of the war, but that the resistance will be victorious. And the axis of resistance will continue to support Hezbollah and the people of Gaza and the people of Palestine against this genocidal regime. This is a Western colony that is racist, that believes in racial hierarchy, that carries out ethnic cleansing, that carries out Holocaust, and it must be stopped.
You know, I'll come back to you, Professor Marandi, because the words that you're using could easily be used against Hezbollah and its proxies and the violence they've unleashed in Lebanon and other parts. Kabir Taneja, you're Deputy Director and Fellow Strategic Studies at ORF. What's your sense? Are we seeing now a weakening of some of these Islamic radical forces that have been propped up by Iran over the last couple of decades?
Thanks, Rajdeep. I think at least Hezbollah and Hamas have suffered significant setbacks. I think that's very difficult to deny at this point of time. Mm-hmm. As some of your speakers earlier said, these have been military setbacks, right? And which is also very important because their capacities have been degraded over the past couple of months. So from that aspect, yes, they have suffered huge blows. And even if there are going to be attempts to sort of rebuild, it is going to take a lot of time and a lot of capacity to do that. Now, we have the bigger question here is the political vacuum going to be big enough in a country, let's say, like Lebanon? And are there actors willing to step in right now to prevent sort of these actors like Hezbollah to rebuild and to sort of build those capacities once again militarily? That answer remains unknown right now. As it was said before, the situation, the political and economic situation in Lebanon is quite poor. So there is a lot of vacuum, both political and economic, for any of these actors to sort of try and rebuild over the next couple of months. But I think for a significant period of time going forward, at least their military capacities will be under high question.
But as we've seen, General Asaf Orion, in the past, every time we feel that Hezbollah has been pushed on the back foot, they've regrouped. Now, is Israel ready for a long war? Is there any end game at all, any de-escalation at all possible? Or do you believe Israel now senses this is a tipping point, this is the moment to go in and clean up the Hezbollah?
I think in the last year, it's the first time that Israel goes, unlike past conflicts of degrade and deter, to actually defeat and reestablish the ground rules around it. I'm astonished to hear the speaker from Iran, a genocidal country, calling for the actual destruction of the state of Israel, and whose whole efforts were building around Israel a ring of those terror armies in order to run a war of attrition against Israel until its destruction. Israel is resolved not to allow it. It started with defeating Hamas, rolling back 2 decades of military buildup. It's now busy in rolling back Hezbollah, 2 decades of military buildup since the Second Lebanon War, if we don't count from 1982. And I think we are watching now some effort into reversal of those tectonics that Iran has tried to build around us, and it will escalate until the terms are met. I think what we are
what are those terms?
If
I may ask specifically, what are the terms that you believe can result in the end of the conflict?
Eventually, Israel has to see zero threats to its borders on behalf of Iran's proxies. It means no open fire, no Hezbollah on our border, no weapons, certainly heavy weapons out of the state's control in Lebanon, so non-governmental weapons, and arms embargo on non-governmental weapons in Lebanon.
Okay, let me take that to you, Syed Mohammad Marandi. You heard what the Israelis are saying. You mentioned earlier that Iran will give a direct response to Israel. Do you really believe that's what Iran wants, or is that just bravado? Will there be public support if Iran is dragged into this war, as you seem to suggest?
Yes, without a doubt. The Israeli regime has violated Iranian sovereignty on multiple occasions. It has carried out assassinations. It has carried out airstrikes. And there is no doubt that the Iranians will punish the regime. This is a situation very much like what you had in India before independence. The British colonized the country, and whenever the indigenous population wanted freedom, they were called barbarians, they were attacked and killed, and if they attacked the British, they would be seen or presented as violating the British sovereignty and British rights. And it's the same thing. These Zionists have immigrated from Europe, and they are not indigenous to the region, and they have been massacring Palestinians for decades, and this simply cannot go on. They consider themselves a superior race.
You're projecting yourself as the victims, but the fact is, there is no strong condemnation coming for Israeli action from most of the countries in the region, in the Gulf region, while Iran has called for a meeting of the OIC. The fact is, many of these countries believe they are also the targets of your axis for resistance. For instance, Saudi Arabia. Is Iran going to get isolated if you expand this theater of war, Professor Morandi?
Iran has no conflict with any country in the Persian Gulf region or any of its neighbors. Iran supports the Palestinian cause, and the countries of the region are encouraged by Iran to isolate the regime and to condemn the regime and to support the Palestinian people who've been brutalized for over 3/4 of a century.
You're hearing this voice, therefore, Itai Melchior. Do you see, given this kind of belligerence from Iran, it may well be not realized on the ground, but do you believe that Israel needs to also find a way to have some kind of an end game of de-escalation? Does Benjamin Netanyahu have that end game inside, or is he also going to engage now in competitive belligerence boosted by the killing of Nasrallah?
So, of course, the end game, as was mentioned earlier, is in the end, Israel wants peace. Israel did not start this war. The war was started by Hamas and then by Hezbollah, who's already fired more than 8,000 rockets into Israel. And my misinformed Iranian colleague is giving some propaganda there, but he has never visited Israel or met any of its 20-something Muslim percent population, who are very happy to have the highest level of living in the Middle East, including maybe except for the UAE and Persian Gulf, certainly more than Iran. And today Netanyahu spoke directly to the Iranian people and said that we have no conflict with Iran or with the Iranian people. The number of Palestinians has been growing steadily, which is very strange for a people that is massacred and holocausted. I think the professor should study the meaning of the word Holocaust he used, and then he will be much better informed. The end game is peace.
Do you accept that, while you say this is a war that Israel didn't start a year ago, started by Hamas, taken over by Hezbollah, the fact is innocents are getting killed by the thousands, especially in Gaza. So the fear is that if this theater of war expands, many more innocents will be dragged in. Netanyahu says the war is not against the people, it's against regimes, but it's the people who are being killed.
I have not yet seen an army telling people to evacuate areas, giving them detailed maps. Israel did a lot to save civilian lives. But when you have a terrorist organization who is told by its leaders to build weapon storage places in civilian homes, in schools, in mosques, then you cannot come and shout foul when those places are targeted. The crimes of war committed by Hamas, for example, are not only against Israel, it's against their own people who they were in charge of taking care of. And instead of that, they themselves hide in tunnels deep underground and leave the civilians to their misery. So the end game, as I said, is getting peace in Gaza, disarming Hamas, which is almost over, and then getting to an arrangement with regional powers who will take over leadership there, and then with local leadership, get Gaza the chance it should be given to give a full, free life to prosper. The same with Lebanon. Israel wants its 100,000 civilians who have had to leave their homes and are now immigrants in their own country to come back to their home safe from the shelling of Hezbollah. And therefore, as I said, hopefully with an agreement, but otherwise with a ground incursion, which I more don't think will happen, and that will be the end of the conflict in the north. And then the question is Iran going to keep fueling terror into the region, into Yemen, into Iraq, and have more of its proxies attacking Israel? And then if that keeps on going, maybe in the end we will see what happens.
Yeah, but there are no timelines. With due regard, that seems like a very long drawn-out war.
No, not at all. Hamas, as was said earlier by the first professor speaking from Princeton, Hamas is almost obliterated. Hezbollah still has a lot of capabilities and has still thousands of warheads, but has problems in the leadership and also a growing disgruntlement from within Lebanon, who, as we said, Hezbollah is part of Lebanon's problem, not a part of Lebanon's solution. So therefore, we have seen Hezbollah not be the perfect proxy. Hezbollah and Nasrallah have not been the most disciplined, have not carried out all instructions they have from Iran, as opposed to the Houthis, for example. And therefore, I'm not even sure that the Iranian regime is so sad to see the back of Nasrallah, because they will appoint someone who maybe will be doing more of their bidding.
Right. Kabir Taneja, all of this, of course, happening while India is just watching by at the moment, seeing how this situation develops. We've heard the Prime Minister speak to Benjamin Netanyahu, hoping that peace will be brought in. Does India have any role at all to play here, given the nature of the conflict, or we just simply have to hope that the conflict finds a solution? Even the Americans don't really seem to have any solution at the moment.
Rajdeep, no, I don't think India has any sort of play in this particular conflict. India has good relations with Israel, it has good relations with Iran, and it has good relations with the Gulf states. And that is one thing that a lot of people expect India to mobilize. But at the best, what India can do is sort of reach out and ask for a quick ceasefire or a quick intervention of sorts. But the only country that has the political and diplomatic capability, along with the history, that is required to sort of step into this conversation is, for the better or worse, the US. But right now, the US is too busy with its own elections. And even till a couple of months ago, getting a ceasefire done before US elections, both either from the Hamas side or from the other sides, would have been probably too complicated, and they were all basically waiting for much more clarity to come from Washington DC in January. So I think, but a lot depends on what the role the US plays. Till now, it has been unable to sort of stitch together any kind of process or diplomatic intervention that can have a meaningful impact. So we'll have to wait and watch on that front. India, I'm afraid, not so much.
Syed Mohammad Marandi, in Tehran, the general feeling across the world is, Iran is being seen as a dangerous, as the real danger to global peace. That's how large parts of the world, Western world, see it. Are you in Tehran disappointed in that way, that you are today once again being almost ostracized and being held responsible for promoting the likes of the Hezbollah?
Well, you can tell from the walkout from the UN General Assembly that the Global South is disgusted with the Israeli regime and its atrocities and its racism and its targeting of women and children, whether in Gaza or the West Bank or Lebanon or Syria or Yemen. The regime has a practice, a policy of targeting ordinary people.
General Asif Orion, final word from you. What would your message be to my Iranian guest and indeed those who might see the axis of resistance challenging Israel in the weeks ahead? General Orion, can you hear me? Let me try. General Orion, if you can hear me, what's your message therefore? What do you believe will be Israel's message to Iran and indeed these other countries in the weeks ahead?
We have an old Hebrew saying that he who sows wind will reap storm. So if Iran insists on attacking Israel once more directly, it will face a final response on this. It's not something that Israel will continue to sit down and take the blows just because Iran orchestrates it by indirect ways, over time, doing it in strange methods. Israel is up on its feet and resolved to fight back.
Okay. On that note, I think what we are seeing clearly is a big picture of a conflict which everyone knows is uncertain as to how it will play out. The real possibility of it escalating can no longer be ruled out. Is there an end game out there? Certainly one that doesn't seem to be in sight at the moment. I appreciate all my guests joining me from across the world for sharing your insights. Most insightful. Thank you so much for joining us on the news today. Let's turn from there to our top national story. And it comes from the Supreme Court, where days after the Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister, Chandrababu Naidu, claimed that there was beef and big fat in the ghee used to prepare Tirupati laddus, the Supreme Court flayed the Andhra Chief Minister. The top court declared that God should be kept away from politics and that Mr. Naidu's statements on prasadam were inappropriate and premature. Here's more.
Unrelenting row over possible beef and pig fat in Tirupati prasadam.
దేవుని దగ్గర పెట్టే ప్రసాదం అపవిత్రం చేసే విధంగా ఓసారి బాధేస్తుంది. నాసి రకమైన ఇంగ్రీడియంట్సే కాకుండా ఎనిమల్ ఫ్యాట్ కూడా వాడారని.
Days after Andhra Chief Minister Chandrababu Naidu claimed that the famous laddus are adulterated, Supreme Court pulled him up for rushing to the press while the probe is underway. The apex court took dim view of the incident and said at least gods should be kept away from politics. The top court asserted that the case is a matter of devotion for millions and not just another political battle to deal with.
And what we are seeking in this matter, the first, there should be a committee, the judicial committee headed by the retired judges of the Supreme Court and High Court. And second is regarding to the CBI investigation in this matter. So Supreme Court took the positive response in this matter and issued notice to all the respondents.
Supreme Court also noted that Naidu spoke about Tirupati laddus even before the FIR was filed or an SIT was constituted. The top court asked Solicitor General Tushar Mehta to seek instructions from the centre on whether an investigation by the central agency is required and posted the matter for further hearing on Thursday.
Being a Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh, one state, how can you make these big allegations without any inquiry, without any proof, without any baseless allegations? Clearly, Supreme Court asked it. So that definitely on 3rd we will definitely know.
On Monday, the SIT also began its probe and visited warehouses and rest houses to check how the adulteration took place inside the Tirupati temple. Andhra Chief Minister Chandrababu Naidu had cited lab reports to claim the act of sacrilege at the revered shrine and said that under erstwhile Jagan government, ghee used for laddus were adulterated with beef and pork fat.
Special investigation team that has arrived here in Tirupati has been here conducting meetings and inspections in across various locations, checking the quality of the flour mill, the rice mill, or even the milk and ghee tankers which arrive here as per the tender supplied and issued after clearances from the DTD board. At Tirumala with video journalist Prasad, Apurva Jayachandran, India Today.
Let's turn to today's election story. It comes from Haryana that goes to the polls on Saturday, where after facing 10 years of anti-incumbency, the ruling BJP is facing a tough fight this year. The Congress has decided to go full throttle in this last phase with Agniveer, Annadata and now a Vijay Sankalp Yatra, which was joined in today by the leader of the opposition, Rahul Gandhi. How's it all playing out on battlefield Haryana? It's our election special.
The Gandhis enter the Haryana Dangal. Rahul and Priyanka kicked off their Vijay Sankalp Yatra on Monday with a rally in Narayangarh constituency in Ambala. The Congress leaders hit out at the Narendra Modi government on a range of topics, including Agniveer, which has become one of the top issues.
ये अग्निवीर स्कीम नहीं है, ये गलतफहमी में मत रहिए, ये जवानों की पेंशन चोरी करने का तरीका है। जो नॉर्मल जवान होता है उसे पेंशन दी जाएगी, पूरी जिंदगी उसे पेंशन दी जाएगी। जिसको अग्निवीर नाम दिया है उसे पेंशन नहीं मिलेगी। मतलब अग्निवीर से उसके जेब से पैसा छीना गया है। कहां गया? अदानी जी की जेब में।
Rahul used the rally to dismiss reports of differences between former Chief Minister Bhupender Singh Hooda and party's Dalit face Kumari Shelja with a show of unity.
कांग्रेस पार्टी बिल्कुल जमीन से काम कर रही है, सभी लोग मिलकर काम कर रहे हैं और सरकार कांग्रेस पार्टी की बनाएंगे, इसमें कोई शक नहीं।
The BJP in power for 10 years is banking on Prime Minister Modi.
जो पार्टी अपने नेताओं के बीच एकता नहीं ला सकती, वो राज्य में स्थिरता कैसे लाएगी? आप देख रहे हैं कि कैसे यहां कांग्रेस में मुख्यमंत्री बनने के लिए मारामारी मची है। बापू भी दावेदार है और बेटा भी दावेदार है और दोनों मिलकर बाकियों को निपटाने में लगे हैं। और ये सब देख करके हरियाणा के जागरूक नागरिक कांग्रेस को निपटाने में लग पड़े हैं।
The Congress is smelling a chance in Haryana, where it has been out of power for a decade. The party is hoping to cash in on the anger among farmers and rural population to dislodge the Naib Singh Saini government.
बीजेपी को यहाँ पे हराओ। धन्यवाद। जय हिंद। नमस्कार।
Bureau Report, India Today.
Veteran Hindi cinema actor, actually Hindi and Bengali, Mithun Chakraborty will be honored with the Dada Saheb Phalke Lifetime Achievement Award. The award announcement was made today. He will be felicitated with the award at the 70th National Film Awards ceremony in the capital on October 8th. Mithun Chakraborty, or Mithun Da, made his debut in Bollywood with the film Mrigaya with Mrinal Sen in 1976, for which he won a national award. He became a household name after the film Disco Dancer was released in the box office and became a major hit in the early 1980s. Okay, joining me now is the man himself, the Lifetime Achievement Award winner, Mithun Da. You're looking very young and fresh, if I may say so, despite your little grey goatee beard. I like it. Your new beard, new dress. You're looking smart. Congratulations.
I am always young. ये जो उम्र है ना, ये शरीर का है, मन का नहीं. तो मन से I have been always young.
Man say you've been always young. How did you feel this morning when you came to know you had won the Dada Saheb Phalke Award for Lifetime Achievement in Cinema?
Truly saying, I have been saying it from the morning, but trust me, I am speaking everything true. That is, अभी तक होश संभाला नहीं. It's such a big award, such a big thing. मतलब मैं खुशी से हंस भी नहीं सकता, खुशी से रो भी नहीं सकता. Well, I'm totally stunned with the thing, and I'm not out of it yet. होश से अभी तक होश नहीं संभाला.
You know, I remember you said once to me that you came from a choti gully in Kolkata to rise up to the top of Bollywood. It's a remarkable journey you've had in cinema over the years. Any moment for you that stands out? कोई खास यादें today?
इस सफर बहुत कठिन. मुझे बहुत लोग बोलते हैं आप बायोग्राफी क्यों नहीं बनाते. मैं कहता हूँ नहीं, क्योंकि मेरी स्टोरी लोगों को इंस्पायर नहीं करेगा, उसको मोरली डाउन कर देगा. सो जो यंग लड़के लोग स्ट्रगल करते हैं ना, वो हिम्मत तोड़ देंगे. इट्स सो हार्ड, सो ट्रॉमेटिक, सो पेनफुल. मैं जैसे बोलता हूँ, एक छोटी गली से, मतलब इट्स अ ब्लाइंड लेन. फ्रॉम कोलकाता आई एम कमिंग फ्रॉम देयर. देन बॉम्बे, यू नो, इट वाज सो हार्ड दैट खाना नहीं मिला. फुटपाथ पे भी सो लिया, कभी 5 गार्डन में सो लिया. And that boy becoming India's biggest award on films is something मैं still इसको digest नहीं कर पाया. Trust me, मैं अभी तक उस होश में, मतलब उसमें हूँ, नशे में, कि भाई ये सच है कि झूठ है, सच है कि झूठ है.
You know, for my generation, Mithun Da, growing up, you are remembered almost like a James Bond character. I remember Gunmaster G9 in Suraksha. Then your big hit Disco Dancer, which defined you as a dancing hero. But which movie defines you as the actor, I want to know? Because before Disco Dancer and Suraksha, you had a fine film like Mrigaya with the great Mrinal Sen. Is that the film that defined you? Which is the film that you look forward to with greatest fondness?
देखिए, I'll tell you, after Mrigaya, when I got the first national award, जो होता है, I started acting like Al Pacino. कि ऐसा लग रहा था कि I am the greatest actor. थोड़ा बहुत मेरा सब एटीट्यूड चेंज हो गया. तो प्रोड्यूसर ने देख के बोला गेट आउट. प्रोड्यूसर को लगा कि क्या बिहेव कर रहा है, ऐसा बैठा हूँ, मतलब जैसे एक बहुत बड़ा एक्टर कोई जन्म ले लिया. तो सबने निकाल दिया. तो मैं समझ गया था कि इससे कुछ तो भाई गलती मेरी थी. तो देन आई डिसाइडेड कि मैं आर्ट फिल्म तब तक नहीं करूंगा जब तक मैं स्टार ना बनूं. इसीलिए फ्रॉम मृगया टू तहादेर कथा सो मेनी इयर्स का गैप है. व्हेन तहादेर कथा आई एम ए सुपरस्टार, देन बुद्धदेव बाबा केम एंड ही सेड दिस इज द फिल्म. आई सेड आई विल डू इट. एंड देन केम रामाकृष्ण परमहंस. ऑल 3 नेशनल अवार्ड्स. बट बहुत डिलिबरेटली मैंने ना बोला उस समय, ऐसी फिल्में मैं नहीं करूंगा जब तक स्टार नहीं बनूंगा.
You're being honest.
के बाद ही मैंने ये फिल्म किया.
A very interesting, honest response. But is today therefore a recognition for Mithun Da the star or Mithun Da the actor?
Both. I'm a star actor, sir. I have balanced my superstardom and my parallel cinema equally. That's why I got 3 national awards.
So what next for you? Now that you won the Dadasaheb Phalke Award, is politics your future in Bengal? Is it cinema? What is your first love? Cinema or being a political leader?
See that my first love will cinema be always. क्योंकि ये मेरा रोटी रोजी है. I cannot leave it, but I have become very choosy. I only do films which tickles me. You can see my film released right now, Kabuliwala, Prajapati. It ran for 150 days. A Hindi film also I'm doing the same commercial style, like Baap. Then I'll be doing next Vivek Agnihotri's film. So this will always remain, with the balancing factor will remain. And as it comes, I have no दादा साहब के बाद क्या करूं, ऐसे कोई प्लानिंग नहीं है. It will come and go. It is life as it goes on. I'll move on.
You know, it's a fascinating life. You started off as a Naxalite who ends up with the Dadasaheb Phalke Award, and that journey has seen lots of shifts, lots of ups and downs. I want to ask you in the end, what is the moment that you are most proud of, Mithun Da, your favorite memory in all these years in cinema?
My first film and my first national award. I'm very proud of, because there are some very, very big actors, and among them I won that award. It was memorable for me. I never forget it.
Yeah, we are showing an excerpt of Mrigaya. It was a terrific film and you played a fantastic role in that. Mithun Chakraborty, for delighting audiences over the years, from playing art cinema to commercial cinema, dancing, including background dancer. I remember in a song, Mannu Bhai, Motor Chali Pum Pum Pum. From there you've come here. I appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much and congratulations once again. Thank you. Okay, Mithun Chakraborty joining us there on the Dadasaheb Phalke. Let me leave you though with an image, with a story which I think really is the happiest story, the best story of the day. The Supreme Court today directed IIT Dhanbad to grant admission to a Dalit student in a B.Tech course because he could not, who was being denied admission because he could not deposit his on-time admission fee of rupees 17,500, saying he's the son of a daily wager. The court said such a talented boy must be given a chance. Today I leave you with an elated Atul Kumar who told India today that his life is now back on track. Today I say 3 cheers to the Supreme Court. I hope they intervene in more such cases, especially for those who've been denied bail for years on end as under trials. Listening to Atul, as I say good night, goodbye, Jai Hind, Namaskar, Shubh Ratri.
बहुत सारे लोग इस उम्मीद में सुप्रीम कोर्ट आते हैं कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट से उन्हें रिलीफ मिलेगा. तो आपको इतनी बड़ी रिलीफ हासिल करने के बाद आपकी पहली प्रतिक्रिया क्या है इस पे?
बहुत बड़ी जीत हुई है यहाँ से. जो इसकी दिक्कत नहीं बननी चाहिए किसी की तरह, क्योंकि यही सीजेआई सर ने बोला, और सीजेआई को और सुप्रीम कोर्ट को दिल से थैंक यू.
इसमें आपके लिए कितनी बड़ी निराशा थी उस समय जिस समय आपका एडमिशन डिनाई कर दिया था? मद्रास हाई कोर्ट से आपको यहाँ आना पड़ा, और यहाँ के लिए आपके मन में कितनी उम्मीदें थी?
जी बहुत उम्मीदें थी कि ये सुप्रीम कोर्ट से पहले ऐसा हुआ था, तो अब एक और केस हुआ था ऐसे, तो अब इसमें रिलीफ मिल सकता है, इसलिए सुप्रीम कोर्ट से पूरी उम्मीद है.